As we all know, Kent Hovind loves to whack me. And for the final guest creator, I've drafted in Planarwalk to whack him back. Right, on with today's guest creator video. As I said at the start, it's from Planarwalk, who I absolutely love, by the way. The link for their channel's in the description. Go check that out and subscribe after this video. Take it away, my friend.
Ahoy hoy all, and welcome along to another episode of Tinfoil Tuesday with me, Planarwalk. Thank you very much for joining me. Today we are looking at Kent Hovind as he whacks yet another atheist, because according to Kent, there are so many atheists out there and they all need whacking.
So many atheists. The winner tonight, Simon Dan, again.
Though despite the number of atheists out there, it seems that he prefers to whack some more than others.
Simon Dan doesn't realize it, okay? And he probably never will understand it. He is spreading the gospel for us to his listeners. Somebody on on Ray Comfort's channel commented right here, Simon Dan was actually one of the atheist channels that exposed me to creationist arguments. I was an evolutionist, secular atheist, and these exact mocking reviews of Christians led me to the Lord, and ultimately led me to people who strengthened my faith. Wild how God works.
So that is one person on a video by Ray Comfort titled, Atheist Accidentally Shares the Gospel with 90,000 People. So of course, you're going to get a comment like that on that sort of video. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a trend though. And there are probably just as many, if not more people watching Simon Dan that find themselves persuaded by his arguments. Or possibly even in the case of this video, my arguments.
Strange admission. So you understood that evolution was a scientific fact and chose to ignore the facts and believe in the error-filled creationist arguments. Well, anybody believes that's a moron, okay? Publicly call you a moron to your face. The creationist arguments are true. God created the world. The world is not billions of years old. There is no geologic column. There is no fossil record.
It's kind of funny that Kent decided to call someone a moron and then just get everything wrong. Kent Hovind's claims go against all the evidence that we observed, like, for example, radiometric dating. If Kent Hovind were correct, then radiometric dating would never give results that go past 6,000 years old, but it constantly does. Now, young Earth creationists will often argue that, well, maybe the half-life of radioactive elements has changed over time, but that's something that has never been observed. There is no evidence to support something like that. So if the only way that you can be correct is by denying all evidence and then proposing that the evidence is wrong because of something that has no evidence for it and has never been observed, then you are probably wrong.
Are there really any questions that evolutionists can't answer?
Yes, Dan, there are thousands of you can't answer. You can't answer how the universe came to be. Where did time come from? Where did space come from? Where did matter come from? How did life get started? How did reproduction get started?
Well, I'd argue that Christians like Kent Hovind can't actually answer those questions any better than an atheist can. Let's take the question of where did time come from, for an example. Well, an atheist might say, well, it came from the Big Bang, whereas a Christian might say, well, it came from God. Now, Kent Hovind would not accept the atheist's answer for that because, well, it lacks a lot of substance. Like, how did the Big Bang create time? But the same also applies to the Christian answer. How did God create time? To say that atheists can't answer these questions to a satisfactory standard while you yourself can't answer those questions to a satisfactory standard is not a good argument. And that's not even getting into the evidence of it all. You see, there is evidence for the Big Bang. Not so much for God. And just because the existence of God might be able to answer certain questions, that does not mean that that therefore is evidence for God. Oftentimes saying I don't know is a better answer than coming up with one without any supporting evidence.
How did any animal ever learn to make something other than its own kind? It's never been observed.
Okay, so evolution is not a conscious effort. Creatures aren't trying to evolve. They just happen to evolve. And when things evolve over long enough periods of time, you would not be able to recognize it as the original organism that it came from.
What benefit is a cow to human beings? There is that egotistical creationist nature again.
Egotistical? Asking what benefit is a cow to human beings? How is that egotistical? I don't get it. I listened to him say that earlier today. I said, what? It's not egotistical. Dan, you answer. Are cows a benefit to human beings? Do you think maybe it was designed that way? It just evolved. I know, it's just evolved. Millions of years, of course.
So Kent Hovind was very confused about how it's egotistical, but then proceeds to show how it's egotistical without any sense of self-awareness. Like, the reason why it's egotistical is because it's assuming that just because cows are useful for humans, that must mean that they were designed specifically for us.
Like air, sunlight, water.
Dan, do you think air, sunlight, and water are a benefit to us?
Yes, they are a benefit to us. Now, I know that question was directed at Dan, but I think I'm allowed to answer it seeing as I'm on Dan's channel. Now, to expand on my answer there, just because something is a benefit to humans, that doesn't mean that it's there for humans. Like, cows, I'm pretty sure, benefit from water, sunlight, and air. Using that logic, we could say that mosquitoes are very annoying to humans, so therefore they must have been specifically designed to be annoying to humans. Now, Kent, why did your God make something specifically to be annoying to us?
Didn't used to have leather, is that right? When they started, they weren't leather and they evolved leather?
Maybe.
Meat, they didn't have meat, and they didn't produce milk?
I can't answer that question.
Well, the answer, of course, is the cow that we know today did not evolve. It was artificially selected by humans.
Bingo. Nothing has evolved, Dan. Nothing. Things have been artificially selected, and there are now 450 breeds of cows.
So this is something that I'd actually disagree with Dan on here, because artificial selection is actually a form of evolution. When it comes to natural selection, which I think we can all agree is a form of evolution, you have evolutionary pressures on organisms, which means that the ones that are best suited to the environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. And when it comes to artificial selection, you still have evolutionary pressures on organisms, it's just that those evolutionary pressures mostly come from what humans want. So Dan, that means that I've just debunked you. Checkmate, atheists.
Let me explain it to you, Dan. There are 450 breeds of cows, okay? Lots of different kinds of cows, artificially selected for more beef or more milk or to stand the heat better, stand the cold better, whatever, or give more calves, okay? Somebody with interest in time could probably make a family tree of all the cows going back to a common ancestor called a cow. But you guys believe it goes back to a common ancestor called an amoeba or a paramecium or a single-celled bacteria or something.
The thing is though, Kent, there is evidence that all life on Earth is related, whether it be genetic evidence or the thing that you really seem to dislike called the fossil record. Because yes, all cows do share a common ancestor. It's called an auroch, by the way. But so do aurochs and humans share a common ancestor. Just because you've got one common ancestor with one thing doesn't mean you can't also have a common ancestor with another thing as well.
I believe cows can jump. They can.
Oh good, I was worried there for a second that I was going to have to explain to Kent, yes, cows can actually jump.
I accept the fact that cows can jump. The evidence for this is overwhelming. Experiments can prove this fact.
Well, obviously it isn't things like evidence that Kent Hovind uses as criteria for accepting something as fact, because otherwise he would accept evolution as fact.
Since we know cows can jump, and this one jumped 6 feet, therefore, given enough time, energy, and money, the cow could jump over the moon. You agree that's silly, don't you, Dan?
Yes, I agree, but that has nothing to do with evolution. And also, still doesn't look like I'm Dan.
There's physical limits, right? Right, that's the whole point. There are limits to how high the cow can jump. There are limits to how far animals can change, and you guys don't get it, okay?
Well, here's the thing. Even if it could jump over the moon, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would be evolutionarily beneficial. It would need to consume more than 7,500 tons of grass whilst not retaining the mass of that grass, but still retaining the energy of that grass and somehow putting all that energy into a single jump. And that is a rough estimate using very lowball calculations, including a small cow, and it is still more than a cow would eat in several lifetimes. Evolutionarily, it makes no sense at all. There would be no evolutionary pressure to make it jump that high, and there would be no evolutionary pressure to make it use that much energy in a single instance. The point that I'm making here is that evolution doesn't go for extravagance, especially when there's no need to do that. It just goes for what works well, and if something works better, it'll go for that. And with enough changes, you get things that are very different to one another despite having common ancestors, like kiwis and emus. Very different. For one, you'd be able to win a war against kiwis.
Have they reached the limit? 6 foot? I don't know. Maybe they'll get to 7 foot next time. But there is a limit. You guys will not admit it.
Well, I'm happy to admit that there are limits, and even if there weren't any limits, evolution would still not create wild things because there would just be no reason to.
The Bible says they will bring forth after their kind. That's all they've ever done, Dan. There are no exceptions to this. None.
Well, it would be helpful if there was some kind of definition of what a kind is, because so far it seems to be a kind is whatever I say a kind is, making it completely unfalsifiable.
After their kind, after their kind, after their kind. It's all through the Bible. 30 times in the 30 times in the book that I found so far, okay?
Well, the Bible isn't exactly a science book, so you should not be using it as one.
So 450 breeds of cows. How many kinds of cows are there? 450.
Well, no, let's be clear, there would be one kind of cow according to you, Kent.
Most would not survive in nature. They have to be protected on a farm or a ranch.
That just depends on where they are. If they're in a place that doesn't have many predators, then they'll be just fine.
Nothing about the cow has evolved. See, breeders have selected from pre-existing traits, like the ability to give milk, which is a really complicated process. The mammary glands in the cow in the udder. Very complicated process. They just emphasized it. They didn't create it. They emphasized an already existing trait. Why didn't they grow wings on the cow and fly? Huh?
Okay, there's a reason why they didn't create a flying cow, and that's because you'd have to select for the changes that would lead to a flying cow, which it turns out would actually be very difficult and take a lot of time. People probably don't feel that much of a need to create a flying cow that they would spend the time and energy on doing so, especially given that you wouldn't just need wings, you'd need the entire rest of the body to change as well.
Belgian blue, 2,700 pounds. But they find fossil cows, 4,400 pounds. See, Dan, things are getting worse.
Okay, it looks like he's basing his statements here off of a myth that has persisted for a long time, but I hate to break it to not only him but a lot of other people, but bigger does not mean better.
All the breeds of cows probably had a common ancestor called a cow. But in your stupid religion, Dan, you believe that proves that the cows are related to frogs and cats and fish, don't you?
It isn't cows having a common ancestor with each other that shows that they have a common ancestor with everything else. It's things like the fossil record. It's things like DNA. And it's the fact that these things are consistent with each other and also consistent with other factors that we wouldn't expect to see if we weren't related.
A modern cow's ancestors are the wild aurochs, which is an extinct cattle species that humans bred to get today's...
Dan, you believe the modern cow's ancestor was an amoeba, don't you? Come on now, be honest.
Okay, this is going to absolutely blow Kent Hovind's mind, but you can have more than one ancestor.
Evolution, why did the horse evolve a groove before anyone sat on it?
That's not a question I can answer, I'll be honest.
Well, it didn't. That groove is the natural curve of the horse's spine.
Natural? I mean, explain what you mean by that, Dan. It just comes that way. It was designed that way, maybe? It was designed to have a curve in the spine, just right for people to sit on?
Well, just because an animal has a curve in its spine doesn't mean that humans are going to ride it. In fact, a lot of animals do have curves in their spine, but I don't see anyone trying to ride a panther. But here's the thing, do you want to know what animal people do ride that isn't a horse? That we have been talking about this entire time? A cow! You can ride a cow! Now, they aren't the best for riding, because if they were, more people would ride them. But it just goes to show that if horses didn't exist, we'd find something else to ride. Like, I don't know, camels, elephants, people ride them too.
Just like our spine has a natural curve in
Right.
it, and
our spine with that natural curve helps to absorb the shock. If you jump on too hard of a subject or too hard of a platform or something, your spine has that S-shaped curve. Great shock absorber. Yeah, almost like it was designed.
Here's a fun fact, a lot of animals have a spine. In fact, animals with a spine are so common that we've come up with a name to describe them. They're called vertebrates. Now, Kent Hovind might be a little bit surprised to learn this, but fish are also vertebrates. Now, we're just going to keep this simple and talk about the fish that swim in the water. We're not getting into the definition of what is a fish. Now, here's the thing about fish. They live under the water, and they have a spine. Because they live under the water, that spine isn't really needed for shock absorption. Turns out that a spine is useful for other things like swimming. Now that to me doesn't seem like it was so much designed for shock absorption, but more that it was repurposed for different uses. And some animals might need better shock absorption than others, so their spine would be more suited to that.
So how do I get to heaven?
You died.
What do you have to do to make it to heaven? What's the criteria?
Follow the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. What's that? 2 minutes ago he admitted that he didn't know that yogurt and ice cream came from a cow. Yeah, good point.
I don't remember most of the Ten Commandments,
Let's
but
go through some.
Notice the way Dan is a mocker. He will mock the one guy, okay, bring up something he said. He doesn't look at his own religion to mock it like you should, Dan, okay? You have the dumbest religion in the world. You believe you're related to a slug.
Notice the way that Kent Hovind is a mocker. He'll mock Simon Dan by saying, oh, you believe you're related to such and such, without actually providing any proper argument. He'll mock others by saying, you believe you came from a rock, without taking a look at his own religion, which says that people came from dirt.
And if you look at a woman and lust for her, you commit adultery with her in your heart. Have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
never.
Are you homosexual?
No.
One of those answers was a lie, but
That's true, Dan. That's true. Good point. But listen to what he says right now.
So once again, I am going to disagree with Dan, but this time it means that I also disagree with Kent Hovind. So Dan is probably correct here, but there is also the possibility that that guy is just asexual.
both options are totally okay.
So adultery is okay and lusting is okay.
Actually, Dan has a good point here. It shouldn't just be considered adultery to be attracted to someone and to want to be with that person. If there are common human experiences and emotions that people can't help but feel, then those should not be condemned. Why would you condemn something that people can't change about themselves? It would be like condemning Dan for being over 6 foot tall. He can't really do much about that.
In your worldview, I'm sure it is. That's probably why you like the evolution worldview, isn't it, Dan? I bet that's why.
Well, no, evolution makes no moral assertion, but you can be a Christian and believe in evolution. So you can have Christian-based morality and believe that evolution is true. Just because you think Christianity and evolution are mutually exclusive doesn't mean that everyone else thinks the same.
How about this, my good man? Forget about it. Live your life as you see fit and forget about being judged by them.
That's what you would love, isn't it, Dan? See, what Dan doesn't realize, and Ray Comfort capitalized on it very well, Dan is spreading the gospel to his crowd.
Well, I don't imagine that it's in a way that would convince very many people that the Bible is true. I mean, I doubt that this video has convinced anyone that evolution is false. It'd be like a flat earther coming along and saying, Simon Dan's flat earth videos, well, they're getting the truth of flat earth out there, when the likelihood is most people see those videos and think flat earth is silly. Maybe one person, if we're being generous, sees them and goes, yes, I'm a flat earther now. But the vast majority of people will see the points that Simon Dan is trying to make and agree with him.
He plays a lot of my videos on his channel. Don't you, Dan? Thank you. Okay?
Oh buddy, I would not be thanking Simon Dan for playing your videos. You do not come off good in any of them.
Ray Comfort is not a nice human being, is he?
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a good friend of mine. What do you mean he's not a nice human being?
Look, given that Matt Powell was one of your closest friends for a while, Kent, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you don't exactly have the best judge of character.
Dan, you're the one we got to watch out for if you think it's okay to lust and commit adultery.
I don't remember Dan's argument being, oh, it's okay to commit adultery. His argument seems to be, it's okay to find someone attractive.
So you don't have to die and end up in hell. The gift of God is eternal life through trusting in Jesus. Hear what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
What do you think about what we talked about?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm actually starting to feel a bit sorry for this guy. Ray has berated him within an inch of his moral centre.
Wait. Ray has got him to confess the truth. He simply got him to confess, yes, I've lied, yes, I've lusted, yes, I've stolen things. He didn't berate him, Dan. Have you lied in your life? Have you stolen things? Have you lusted? Have you ever committed adultery? You ever had premarital sex or extramarital sex? I don't know. Doesn't matter to me, but it will to you on Judgment Day when God judges you, because it's His law you're going to be judged by.
I definitely see this as being closer to berating someone because it's saying that there is no way to be a good person because everyone is flawed. Everyone has done bad things, so therefore they cannot be good in God's eyes. It seems to Ray that the good deeds that you do in your life do not matter at all. If you volunteer to go out and help the elderly, that doesn't matter to him because one time you stole something. The most important thing is always the bad things that you do in your life, never the good things. And by the way, that is a classic manipulation technique that is often employed in toxic relationships. If you're trying to get me to have a relationship with your god Yaldabaoth, it sounds like you're wanting it to be a toxic one.
I'm trying to help you, Dan. Really, I am. I'm the best friend you got, and you don't even know it. I'm trying to warn you.
Look, if you want to help Dan find God, or anyone find God for that matter, here's a good place to start. Evidence. Ray Comfort's technique of saying, oh well, you're a sinner so you need to repent, isn't going to work on anyone that doesn't actually believe in God due to the lack of evidence that they have for God. I mean, if God exists, then surely there would be some compelling evidence out there for that, right?
And tied him into some emotionally blackmailed, laced verbal contract. Or
He tied him into a blackmail. He blackmailed him into a contract. He explained the truth. You sinned. You're going to be judged. There's a way out. Would you like it? What is wrong with you, Dan?
What is wrong with you, Kent? What you described there is blackmail. If I came up to you and said, hey, I've got video of you committing crime and I'm going to show it to the police, but there's a way out. You just got to do what I tell you to. Is that not blackmail?
I can't help but think Ray delights over imagining evolutionists burning in hell.
Now, do you know what?
You think Ray delights with people burning in hell. Dan, listen, you're a complete idiot. Ray spends a lot of time out on the streets trying to talk people into giving their heart to Jesus Christ. We devote our whole ministry here to bringing people to the Lord. I don't delight in people going to hell. Otherwise, I'd just let them do it.
The problem with that is if you actually held those views, I would think that would be quite depressing. I mean, it must be if 2/3 of the world are going to hell. And we know for a fact that there are people out there that don't find it depressing at all. They delight in it. They delight in the idea that people unlike them are going to be burning in hell. And the way that yourself and Ray Comfort often conflate evolution and atheism makes me think this is less so about saving people and more about pushing an ideology. If Kent Hovind or Ray Comfort happen to be watching this, then I have a question. Do you think that Christians who believe in evolution are saved? I feel like the answer to that could be quite telling.
Well, God can legally take the death sentence off you because of what Jesus did on that cross.
seems like a bit of an unfair deal, to be honest, and also very convenient. The sacrifice of a human being in the past that no one has ever seen to make up for all the naughty things that humans have done.
Wait. Something happened in the past that no one's ever seen? Dan, look at your own religion. Nobody's ever seen a Big Bang produce anything.
Well, Kent would be wrong there because we have actually seen the Big Bang. What do you think the cosmic microwave background radiation is? That is literally light from the Big Bang. Now, Kent may say something along the lines of, oh, but you haven't seen it with your eyes. And I haven't actually seen Kent Hovind with my eyes. To see Kent Hovind, I need the help of instruments that can see Kent Hovind for me so that I can see Kent Hovind myself. And the same goes for the Big Bang. I need the help of instruments to see the Big Bang for me so that I can see the Big Bang. So therefore, if Kent Hovind can say that I haven't seen the Big Bang because I haven't seen it with my own eyes, and therefore it's not real or something, I can say that I haven't seen Kent Hovind with my own eyes, so therefore he's not real. And this means that I have just wasted over 22 minutes responding to someone who doesn't exist, so I should probably stop doing that. But that means that we are all done and dusted for another Tinfoil Tuesday. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if the feeling takes you. If you want to see more of me, then you can check out my channel, Planarwalk. Just enough time to give a big thank you to Simon Dan for letting me on his channel. I have been Planarwalk, and I will see you over on my channel. Between you and me, thank you for watching.